Thanks to everyone for joining. As Jennifer said, my name is Ann Harris, and I am an open campus coordinator in Hood River and Wasco counties. And I'm joined by Ezequiel Lopez Reyes.
Yeah, hey everybody. I'm Ezequiel or Ezekiel, whichever you prefer. So I actually work out with Open Campus, mainly with transfer students at the community college. So my job is to ensure that students transfer to the university as effortlessly as possible with the best amount of credits that they can transfer as best possible in any way. So that's my goal, is to help students transfer from point A to point B, which is advising, financial aid help, admissions help, and everything in between.
Successfully transferring to a four-year college or university. That's what we're going to talk about this evening. Let's start with introductions. Well, we've introduced ourselves. I don't know, do you usually introduce everyone who's on the call, Jennifer, or should we?
Yeah, we've kind of got past that and just moving on and kind of go smoother. So
okay, we will do that this time. So yeah, we're going to talk tonight a little bit about why people transfer, some of the advantages and the challenges that people face. We're going to talk about creating an education plan and financial aid, of course. That's an all-important topic, as well as dates that need to be kept in mind and understood fully so that you can make that happen. And we'll talk a little bit about dual enrollment opportunities, which can be really helpful. And we'll have some time for frequently asked questions at the end. Why transfer? Well, there's a number of important reasons, and the top one is on most people's minds, and that is savings. Starting at community college is about, if you're paying tuition, it's probably a little less than half the cost per credit than our state universities. And many students are able to access Oregon Promise or other scholarship opportunities that will even take care of part or all of their tuition for first 2 years of community college. So that's a huge cost savings and really important to make as you're looking to make that go all the way through your bachelor's degree. Many students enjoy the smaller class sizes at community college, especially in those early introductory courses. Sometimes university courses can have really large classrooms, and that can be a little intimidating. Although universities try hard to break that up in some of your smaller groups, but it's still, at community college, most of the classes are 20 or less, at least at the community college that I connect closely with. How about you, Ezekiel? At PCC, are they still pretty small class sizes?
Yeah, honestly, we're looking at roughly between 25 to 30 students, sometimes even less. Obviously, your lab classes are going to be a little bit smaller. So yeah, I would probably assume that it's similar to what you're experiencing in high school right now.
Yeah. Another big reason is to explore educational and career options. So you may not be absolutely sure that what you want to do, or if what you want to major in requires a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree. So maybe you want to spend some time exploring some of those options before heading to a 4-year school and making that decision. Then, of course, family needs. Many people need to stay close to home to help with their family for a variety of reasons. And there may be other reasons that folks that make that decision to start at community college and then intend eventually to transfer. So there are some challenges with transferring, and I'm probably, there's kind of a reputation around that many people hear, and that's like a worry about transferring and starting at community college. It may not work for you. This happened to my cousin, or I heard about this happening. And yes, there are some challenges, but that's what we want to mitigate with this webinar, and we want to give you resources and support so that you can avoid any challenges if you do decide to start a community college. So, you know, one might be choosing the school that you're actually going to transfer to. Sometimes students choose a school that doesn't have the major that they ultimately want. So, you know, we need to make sure we're working on understanding the differences in the different colleges and universities and what they offer so you can choose the right school to transfer to. There's applying to transfer. It's a little bit more complicated process than it is to apply to community college. So got to get, you know, all your ducks in a row with your application. Transferring credits, that's really the big one. And that's something we're going to be talking about a bit more for sure, because that's where a lot of students find that they, you know, if they take a class, it may not be the wrong class. It may help you explore and understand more about yourself, but it might not transfer the way that you would hope it would. So we need to make sure that you understand the courses that you're taking and how they would transfer. There's the increased cost of attendance. That's a challenge. How are you going to pay for that higher tuition? And potentially if you decide to live on campus or, you know, actually move to that university versus online, then housing is another big expense. And then making a successful transition, just understanding all of the things that you need to understand to access the supports and things that are available at your transfer institution. So we're hoping to touch on a lot of those today and throughout these College Talk Tuesdays, probably learning more and more, especially on that successful transition and succeeding in college. I think that's going to be one of those topics that Jennifer will be touching on further as well.
All right. So now that we've talked a little bit about advising, and before we move into more of the piece of the advising and the sessions what that's going to look like and the shared responsibility, I want to go over some important dates that we have here in regards to applying to the university or financial aid. Application deadlines for most universities are going to vary throughout the year. There's we have like rolling advising in a sense. So most universities won't deny you if you're applying in June or if you're applying in February, October, whatever it may be. Always meet with an advisor because these dates are open. People are always under the impression that you have to apply early. You have to apply in October. And while they may have some sense to it, it's always important to make sure that you're checking in that you're not too late to apply, because I get a lot of students who come in and say, well, it's a little too late for me to apply for the fall. And I'm like, no, I mean, I still have students right now who have asked me like, hey, is it okay if I fill out my application? Like, yes. Let's work on your application. Let's get this done and get you enrolled. It takes about a month or two for it to get going, but can we still get you into the fall term? Can we still get you into the winter term? Yes, it's possible. But again, it's a communication piece that you have to talk to your advisors in order to find out more information about that. Financial aid, or if you're an or thinking about applying for either one, October 1st is the day you're going to want to look at as a date to sign up for your financial aid. So October 1st is it's kind of a newer day. Years ago, it used to be the beginning of the year, January 1st. So if you have older siblings or parents, many of them signed up for financial aid on January 1st. That wasn't enough time for students to fill out their financial aid or their tax information. So they actually moved it back a couple of months to October. So that way everything could be a little bit smoother, since it's a lot of paperwork. It takes a lot of time for financial aid offices at given schools to process all this information. So make sure that you have that noted down your calendar. October 1st is when you're going to want to make sure that you're applying for financial aid or for ORSA. That's also another important component of the Oregon Promise, making sure that you're applying for financial aid or ORSA. That does make you eligible for Oregon Promise. Students who are applying for ORSA also qualify for the Oregon Promise, since it is funded by the state of Oregon and not federally. So Make sure that you also apply for Oregon Promise. They're all on the same page. So once you're done filling out financial aid or your ORSA, you can go ahead and apply for the Oregon Promise. And you're going to want to make sure that if you're thinking about applying for Oregon Promise for this next academic year, you do that before June 1st. That's going to be a deadline. So make sure that you have that on your calendar as well. As far as housing, that's another thing. We can kind of talk a little bit about that later down the road as we're continuing with your academic plan and the transfer process. But most schools, usually around is when you're going to want to start applying for housing. But again, I'll talk a little bit more about that as we progress during these slides. And again, same thing with orientations. Orientations are kind of split. It's a little bit different depending on the term. So if you're thinking about starting in the fall, typically you're going to start signing up for orientations in May or June. That's roughly when you're going to do that. But dates will vary if you're thinking about transferring in between the academic year. So like if you're thinking about starting in the winter or in the fall, those dates will change. But again, that's why you want to make sure that you meet with an advisor. I'm going to say this a lot, but your advisor can be your best friend. And I want you to think about that as an advisor being your ally, because they're going to be your best bet in order to make sure that you're not missing any steps along your process. Okay, so what are you going to expect when you meet with an advisor? It's kind of an intimidating meeting, honestly, if you're coming from the perspective of a student. I myself was a transfer student. I had brothers who went to college, but things were a little bit different. I had to do this on my own. My parents didn't speak the language. They didn't know anything about college. So I had to go through this alone. With a meeting with an advisor, you're basically going in and figuring out what your plan is, what your game plan is. And they're going to give you a couple of different options within your first meeting. When you meet with an advisor, they're going to ask you a couple of things. What is your, have you done any like writing classes? Have you done any dual enrollment classes? Have you taken any AP credits in high school? If so, do you have that information with you? So if you're taking AP classes and you've taken the AP exam and you've gotten credit for like a writing class, an English or a math class, make sure that you're speaking out and telling the advisor that you have these on your transcript or you've gotten this credit through the high school. It's super important because an advisor is going to assume that you're coming in with a clean slate. You don't have anything. You don't have a writing. You don't have a math. All they're gonna advise you off is based off of your placement, whether that's using your high school grades for placement or using the placement exam, whether it's a math exam or a writing exam. They're going to base your placement off of that and create a schedule from that placement. So one of the things I always tell my students is please ask questions. Why am I being advised to do this? If I've already heard about the Writing 121 and I have credits from like PSU, Western Oregon, or through Willamette Promise, or through any other source that I know that I have this, please bring it up. Because if you're silenced, you're going to take a credit that you've already done at the community college or at the university. So make sure that you're bringing that information up to an advisor, because again, they're thinking you're coming in with a clean slate. So that's basically the conversation you're going to have with them. Is they're going to go off of whatever placement you have, whatever credits you have, and build a schedule off of that. One thing to know is that when you're in an advising session, they're not going to register you for classes or they're not going to look classes up for you. What they're going to do is they're going to have a conversation, create a plan for the fall term and for the winter term, and they're going to send you off to register for classes. Does this mean that you're on your own for registering for classes? No, not necessarily. So don't worry about that. Typically what they'll do is they're going to have some sort of orientation format, or they're going to have dedicated people that once you're done with their session, they're going to sit you down in front of a computer and show you how to register for classes, show you how classes are set up, whether it's a Monday, Tuesday class, Thursday, Friday class, whatever it may be. They're going to help you figure out a plan for your next academic term. And one thing I want to bring up that's a little bit different than than what you expect in high school, you're not in classes all day. So you could have a math class that's on a Monday, Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., writing class from, let's say, noon to 2, and that's it. Then you come back on Tuesday and Thursday and you have maybe an elective class from like 10 to 12. That's full time. That's a full load of classes, and you're done basically for the week. It's up to you how you manage your time, how you manage your homework. There's no one behind asking you if you've done your homework or if you've done this or that. It's basically those set of classes, those set of hours, and you continue on. This is just kind of a plan that, let's say I have a student who's come in and asked me, hey, Ezekiel, this is what I placed. I placed into writing 121. My math, you can place anywhere from a very basic algebra class, which could be like a pre-algebra, up to like a calculus course. So every college is going to be a little bit different. At the community college, it'll be different. As an example, at PC, they have Math 20 up until Math 251 where you can place, right? So there's a variety of it. So for this presentation, let's say a student placed in Math 111, which is your college algebra, which is transferable to many universities across the state. So place Math 111, we have Psychology 101. Let's say they want to go into psychology, and maybe they want to do a PE class or a health class to go along with that. Typically, your writing class is going to be a 4-credit class. Your math class is going to be between 4 to 5 credits. Your psychology class is going to be 4 credits. There you have your 12 to 13 credits for full time. However, I recommend most students do between 13 to 15 credits so they can finish out their degree within 4 years roughly. So you're going to roughly want to look at between 13 to 14 credits throughout your time in college in order to finish within those 4 years. Again, it's not a guarantee because some majors may have a little bit more substance and may need more credits, but on average, you're going to want to complete between 13 to 14 credits roughly in order to finish out your degree. So this is a rough idea of what I would advise with the student. Again, I always have conversations with students about, prior to them registering for class, I have conversations about students. Are you an early bird? How do you do in the morning with math classes? Would you rather have classes in the afternoon? These are questions I ask students because I don't want them registering for an 8 a.m. class and them not succeeding. Because it's very, very different. Trust me, I had an 8 a.m. class at Portland State University, and I lived an hour away. I had to get up at 6 a.m., get on the max by 7 to get to class on time. So there's these things that you have to think about as a college student in order to make sure that you're successful. So these are conversations that I have with students and conversations you'll probably have with your advising staff as well. But again, ask these questions. We're there to answer these questions for you. If these questions, we're just going to assume that you already know everything.
I wanted to share just a little bit about choosing your educational / career path, because I know when you're starting in college, you're thinking, okay, well, some students have this very clear, defined idea of what it is that they're going to major in. They've known all along. But really, not that many students are in that spot. It seems like it when you talk to people, but in truth, most students are not absolutely sure what they want to major in when they start. And that's okay, because college is a great place to determine what it is you are really interested in. There's so many more different kinds of classes than there are in high school. So you really have an opportunity to explore. And in those first few years at community college, you can kind of have that freedom. You'll be taking primarily your general education courses. Those are the courses that are part of the degree that are not so much totally focused on one major. That's the part of the degree where you're broadening your understanding of things and taking general education. At OSU, they call it the baccalaureate core, but there are there's set categories of classes, but lots of freedom within those categories to explore different things. So really want to encourage you to explore and enjoy the general education opportunity. Don't see it as a burden, but think of it as a time that you're going to explore different interests and solidify as you start to hone in on your interests. If, with the mindset that you're planning to transfer, as you become more and more firm about that, then you do want to make sure you're checking, like Ezequiel said, with an advisor all the time to make sure that the courses that you take are transferable. Or, there's room to take a few electives, courses that are transferable that will be considered an elective, but not that many electives. So wanting to, make sure that your courses as much as possible are transferable and helping you towards your degree. So one of the things that I really advise students in community college is you may not absolutely have it defined by the time you're finished with your first 2 years, but hopefully you can. But if you can't, try to narrow your interest at least into kind of two sort of broad categories. And I think that's really possible. Like, are you interested in science, engineering, math-oriented, healthcare fields, those kinds of things? Those courses, those degrees require certain amounts of science and math, and those can be those foundational courses that you'll want to focus on during community college, so that when you do transfer to the four-year school, you won't be behind, and you will have taken the what we might call foundation courses, the courses like, you know, biology 211, which is sort of the broad basic biology 211, 212, 213. That year of biology is good for almost every science major. So if you take that, you know, then you know, well, I'm not sure if I want to do this kind of science or that, or maybe this healthcare or that. But if you take that biology series, that's going to work for you. Similar to engineering, you know, you're going to need a lot of math. So keep taking the math. But if that, you know, I think most people a little bit, you know, into their education process can decide if that's your direction, or if your direction is kind of the other way, which is sort of the broad other way, which could include business or social science, psychology, counseling, social work, so many different other types of majors, many majors pertaining to teaching that is not science oriented. But those courses, those directions may not require you to take as much math or as much biology, or maybe you can take some different types of math and biology. So if you can at least kind of decide on one of those two paths, it'll really help you to make sure that you take the courses that you need, so that when you do get to that four-year school, you will have the year of this or that that's needed, so you can jump right in and start right away with the courses for your major at junior level, as a junior at the university. So that's my pitch, is to try to build your foundation based on whether you really want to go more science math stuff or kind of another path.
Anne mentioned a little bit about the junior status, credits, how they go, how they transfer, about making sure that you're choosing a major within a few terms or not. Definitely those are recommendations I always ask students to really consider within their first couple of terms while sending it to community college. Again, Anne mentioned that there was these horror stories about people saying, oh, well, my cousin went to community college, my brother went to community college. They were given wrong information. It took them a lot longer. You know, the community colleges is prestigious. You know, there's so many things that people have said about community college that are completely false. Remember, there's always two sides to the story. So never feel like if somebody has a horror story, it's going to happen to you. Again, going back to what I said, an advisor can be your best friend. So make sure to connect with them. So what I did right now is I brought up one of the what's called an AAOT, the Associate of Arts Transfer degree at the community college, that shows how credits transfer or how they're applied to the specific degree, right? The AAOT is universally accepted within the Oregon University systems. So basically, if you complete this degree, you're given junior status. So you'll become a third-year student. However, that's a very misleading thing to keep to, what am I trying to say? It's very misleading information, because students feel like, oh, okay, well, if I finish the AAOT, then I'm a junior. I've met all the requirements. But that's not true, because the AAOT doesn't cover for every specific major. So as an example, right, if you complete the AAOT, you can complete this AAOT with finishing everything that's on this chart right here that's required. You finish 90 credits, boom, junior status, right? But have you met the requirements? Let's say you're going into engineering. Have you met the requirements? Have you taken all the engineering courses? Have you taken all the science courses? Have you done all the math that's required here? If you look at this chart, it only states that you need a few math courses, a few writing courses. It doesn't state that you need engineering courses. So this could be very, very misleading to some students who assume that if they complete the AAOT, they'll have met all the requirements for their first 2 years for any given major, which is completely false. This can actually fall in line with a lot of great majors like psychology majors, social work, writing, a bunch of other things that can fall into this category, but not everything falls into the AAOT. So what I tell students is, please be careful when you're choosing classes and don't assume that this AAOT will cover everything for whatever you're intending to pursue. This is where the horror stories begin. Some people are like, yeah, just follow your AAOT, you're good to go, you're set, it's accepted by all the universities. True, it'll give you your junior standing, but if you're not following whatever specific prerequisites a given majors is needed, then you're not really following anything. You're just following blindly, honestly. That's just a term that I'm telling students, that you need to make sure that you know what you're studying. I'll give you 2 terms to decide what you need to 2 terms to pursue a degree or figure out what you want to do. After that, we really need to find out where it is that you want to study, because within 2 years, you could complete up to 30 credits. And remember that it takes 180 credits, 190 credits to pursue a bachelor's degree. So that's already a good chunk of courses that you've already completed. So now we need to figure out where you're going. So you're not wasting your money, and you're not wasting time and effort in pursuing a major that maybe you wanted to follow, but not 100%. So take some time to really figure out what you want to do. Give it a couple of terms. Most of those classes, those couple of terms will transfer, but after that, it's not a guarantee. So that's why I always have this conversation with students. Do you really want to get your AOT? What's your major? And let's see if it fits in. If it fits in, perfect. If you tell me I want to do psychology, great. Let's follow this. I'll show you how every class falls in line here. I create a plan for you and we go forward. But if you come in and you tell me I want to do engineering or I want to do biology, okay, maybe this isn't the best step for you. We need to figure out what colleges are requiring as far as prerequisites and what other courses they are recommending that you do prior to moving to university. So that's really, really important that we have that little note to the side that we need to figure out what every university wants. And again, checking in with an advisor is what's going to help you figure that out. Advisors at the community college are amazing. They have a wealth of knowledge. Some of them, are well connected with the universities that they could just call them or email them and they'll have all the information within a couple of minutes or even a day, and they'll advise you and get you set up with an accurate plan. Now all you have to do is decide, do I want to stick out a year at the community college? Do I want to do 2 years at community college? Or how long can I stretch out my time at the community college before I'm forced to move to university? Because there's going to come a point in time where you have to move on to university. And again, checking in consistently with an advisor is going to be to your advantage, because that way we're always planning ahead and we know what to expect and when to move on. So that's key. So I want to make sure that you have that in mind. The AOT might not always be the best option. In most cases it is, in most cases it will be, but not all the time. So make sure that you keep that.
Piggyback on that. And if it turns out you're, for whatever reason, don't feel like you're clicking with one advisor, you can always go to another advisor and find someone that you really do have that ability to communicate with. So don't feel like you're boxed in. Definitely seeing the advisor and finding one that you can work with is absolutely key.
And I still work with the community college. I still work at PC, but not to the extent of an academic advisor as I was before. So I've come from the background of being an academic advisor. I worked with students. I kind of know some of these challenges. I know that sometimes we're not going to click, and you may click with a different advisor, and that's okay. We are not insulted by any of that. Feel free to work with somebody who fits your style and who you feel comfortable with. That's important, so that you feel comfortable with whoever you're talking.
One way that that's a really great opportunity that can really help you to be sure everything is going to align well with what it is you want to do at your transfer school is the opportunity for dual enrollment. And well, I really think, as I was doing some research, all of the Oregon universities do offer some type of dual enrollment program. Dual enrollment can sometimes be called degree partnership. At OSU, it's called degree partnership program. Sometimes it's referred to as co-admission. At PSU, it's it's called that. And I've also seen it as concurrent enrollment. And what it means is that you are dually enrolled at both the university and the community college. You can be taking all of your classes at your community college and be dual enrolled. The advantages are many for doing that. So as soon as you know where you want to transfer to, I would look into the possibility of dual enrollment if that is an option for you. Now at OSU, dual enrollment or degree partnership program is available with all of the community colleges across the state. At the other colleges, the other universities, it's not available at all of the community colleges. So you have to check in on that. But if it's available, definitely take advantage of it, because first and foremost, it coordinates your advising and course planning. Once you are dual enrolled, you have an advisor at the university as well as an advisor at your community college. And your transcripts after every term get sent over to your future university, and your advisor there takes a look at them and can help you make plans towards your ultimate major to make sure that every course you're taking is the best course for you to take at your community college for transferability and for you to move in the quickest, most direct path towards your major. Another real good advantage is that there's a good financial aid process there. When you're at community college, if the majority of your classes you're taking are there, then your financial aid comes through the community college. And if you decide you want to take a class at the university at the same time, then a really good thing is that all of the credits that you take at both the community college and the university count towards the total amount of credits that you need to be taking in order to maintain your financial aid status. So when your financial aid, if you say I'm going to be a full-time student, then you have to be taking at least 12 credits. And if you're dual enrolled and you want to take a class at the university at the same time as the community college, if you're dual enrolled, then all the credits count toward that 12. That's a nice little benefit. It gives you some more flexibility in course selection. For many students, all the courses they need are at the community college, and then they just make the shift to the university. But for some students, as you're starting to get towards the end of the time at your community college, you start realizing, oh, well, I have still some room and I'd like to start with one of my classes at my university and I can take it online. Or maybe your university is close enough to you so that you can just go take it there. That's another great opportunity. It gives you more flexibility and an opportunity to start taking some of the classes specific to your major to make sure, maybe make sure that is the thing that you want to major in. Yeah, so expanded student options, choices of curriculum, access to the services and activities. If you're living near the town or where the university is located, dual enrolled students or degree partnership program students can take part in activities. You can, if you're in the area of Corvallis and you want to be at OSU, you can join sorority and you can do sports and access all of the great student services that are there, from the recreation center to the arts and crafts center and all of those great things. So there's some great advantages of dual enrollment, whether you are in the town where your university is and you can access it physically, or if you just are available to access it online. Or even if you never take a class at the same time at the two schools, the big advantage that I always tell people is that advising piece, so that you can be sure that you're taking the courses that you need, and you can feel really confident of that, because your transcripts are actually sent and they will become part of your final transcripts for your bachelor's degree. So they're already transferred in. You don't have to worry.
And I wanted to mention something else too, and especially now, given the circumstances that we're living in with the pandemic, I always mention to students, especially those who are in high school who have been accepted to the university, and the university offers dual enrollment. I would definitely take advantage of the dual enrollment if it's something that you've been considering. Again, given the circumstances, nobody knows what's going to happen within the next couple of months, in-person, online classes. None of us know that right now, right? So as an example, with OSU, some students will be offered dual enrollment at DPP for their first year when they're freshmen, right? Some students may opt to join the community college while still being dual enrolled with OSU. So what does that basically mean? You basically have 2.5 years with us with our dual enrollment to transfer to Oregon State effortlessly. You don't have to reapply. You don't have to submit your transcript or anything like that. Once you're ready to transfer, you're ready to transfer. And there are some similar programs out there, the different community colleges, the different universities that have that same offer where that first year you could do to community college. Your transcripts get sent. You have access to your grad plan, which shows how classes line up based off of your major. So there's a lot of good things that come in with dual enrollment. So if you've been thinking about going to the community college for a year or two, this whole thing is going on, definitely look into dual enrollment because it's an advantage for you. Again, you don't have to apply anymore. You're already admitted and your transcripts are being sent and evaluated after every term. So once you make the transition, it'll be as smooth as possible. All you really have to go through is go through a simple orientation, get registered for classes, and that's it prior to transferring over to the university. So dual enrollment is a huge advantage for most students. Whatever given university you're going into, please look into it because I definitely think it's worth the effort.
How will I know if these classes transfer, Ezequiel?
Working with myself or an advisor, we definitely, one of the things that I always tell students is, unfortunately, the university system isn't as nice as we'd like it to be, but we do work really well together. So we have transfer guides from different universities that are given to the community colleges. So given the major, most likely there's going to be a transfer guide that shows you what classes you could take at the community college and how they will transfer to university. So most community colleges will have that. I'm pretty sure all of them do because we want to make sure that we're inclusive to all our students, whatever part of the region you're located in. So there is a transfer guide. And chances are that advisor will give you that guide so that way you can look at it and manage through your classes. That way you feel that you have control over your classes and what you're going to be choosing in the future.
Can I still apply to colleges and start classes in the fall if you apply after spring term?
Yeah, you definitely can. I think a lot. So, as a community college, say you're just going into community college and you haven't looked at the university as an option, maybe later down the future, but you want to start the community college, you don't have dual enrollment. Let's say maybe you were like me and your GPA was terrible. I had a very terrible GPA when I was coming out of high school. So not a lot of universities were looking at me, honestly, or were willing to take that chance on me. So going through the community college, obviously you have to have at least 24 transferable credits or more. So when I say transferable credits, they're credits that are 100 level or higher. Anything below 100 level will not transfer. So if you're doing like a Math 20 or a Math 60, something like that, those courses unfortunately won't transfer. They are for credit at the university, so financial aid will cover it. However, they won't transfer to university. So on average, we're looking at 12 to 14 credits that you're taking per term, right? You do 12 credits or 14 credits in the fall, then you do another 12 credits in, let's say, the winter, right? That's 26. That possibly makes you eligible to transfer to apply to the university. So you could apply for the university then, or let's say maybe you only took 8 credits in the winter or the fall and the winter, and then you take 14 in the spring. Again, everybody's different and it has happened before. Then that's where you accumulate the 24 credits or more to transfer. You can still apply. I've had students apply June 15th. They get accepted in the middle of July. We send them up with an orientation in August. Boom, they're good to go. They're set. So it is possible. It's going to be a little bit quicker paced. We're going to make sure that you're working closely with myself or with any given advisor that you're working with to make sure that you're not missing a beat and you have everything that you need to transfer to the university. So it is possible.
Can I spend more than 1 year at the community college if I want to transfer?
Yeah, you can spend up to 2 years full-time and take up to 90 credits that can be transferable, maybe even a little bit more depending. But the trick is to make sure you're working with your advisor so you're not just taking courses that aren't going to count for your ultimate major. That's the real key.
Yep.
Sometimes students stay a bit too long at their community college and they take too many credits, and that can be a problem not just with like feeling frustrated that you took courses that don't transfer well, or maybe that you might have wasted a little bit of time or money, but there's actually ultimately a limit to the amount of financial aid you can get for the amount of credits that you can take. So you don't want to take too many credits so that you max out your total financial aid allotment before you can actually complete your bachelor's.
And it used to be true that sometimes there were some majors that you probably were better off doing 1 year at the community college and then moving on. However, universities have become more friendly with the community colleges and have been working to create classes that will transfer a little bit more directly to the university. So over the last couple of years, honestly, you can actually spend 2 years on any given major at the university, and you'll be fine. So
community college.
At the community college, yeah. So make sure that you're working with your advisor, but you can definitely spend more than 2 years at the community college.
So are there advantages of starting in the fall if I'm a transfer student rather than transferring like in the winter or spring term?
Yes, scholarship-wise, it's super important. Most universities will only offer scholarships starting in the fall term. There's a couple that linger on into other terms, but the major scholarships will be offered in only in the fall. So that's another important key component that you're looking into scholarships, because sometimes they may offer you a scholarship, but if you decide to forego the fall term and start in the winter, you may lose that scholarship. That's actually a circumstance that happened with a couple of my students this year that we were unaware of. Luckily, we were able to get their scholarship back for the winter term, but it took a lot of work. It definitely did. So I recommend that if you're going to start, create a plan that will get you started in the fall, because sometimes some of those scholarships are worth you starting in the fall, even if you're not thinking about it. Some of those scholarships can be worth up to $5,000 per term, such as our Finley scholarship that a few of my students have actually received this last academic year. So definitely consider fall as a big option.
And to start in the fall, you want to make sure that you apply by that scholarship deadline, which at OSU is February 1st. That way you can qualify for the most possible scholarships.
Yeah,
nice, that makes sense.
Yeah, and most scholarships, such as the OSAC, also have those deadlines of like the 15th and do have you start your scholarship cycle at the beginning of the fall term. So make sure that's something you consider.
Will I need to supply my high school transcripts and my ACT or SAT scores to the university if I'm a transfer student?
That's actually a big question that I get a lot from community college students. Many of them are like, do I have to send my transcript? Do I need my SAT scores? After you started the community college, all we're worried about is your community college grades. The only time we'll ask for your high school transcript is within the state of Oregon. They have a requirement that high school students complete 2 years of a foreign language within high school. However, there's a few high schools that couldn't do that, so they've passed that on to the university. So let's say you have those 2 years at the high school level. All you need to do is just show them your transcript, and they'll waive that. But if you don't, you'll have to do 2 terms of a foreign language at the community college in order to graduate from the university. So that's important, that if you do have those 2 years at the high school, you show it to the university. It's not going to impact you getting accepted, but it will impact you getting your degree when you're done with your 4 years at the university. And that's all universities across Oregon. So it's not just OSU, it's not just PSU. Every university will ask to see your transcript. If you don't, then you'll be forced to take those 2 years of 2 terms of a foreign language at the community college.
How do I go about figuring out housing?
Housing can be tricky. If you want to live on campus, you need to apply and go through that process and understand, about the different options for housing. They vary in cost. Maybe someone that you want to live with, and maybe you want to look into some housing off campus. A lot of times transfer students aren't really, wanting to jump in the dorms, and that's certainly an option. But one thing you have to remember is that in a lot of the schools, housing is tight and expensive in those areas. So you need to somehow get yourself down to where you're going, to Corvallis if that's where you're going, or Eugene or Portland, to start to look for housing around the time when hopefully before everyone else has taken all of the spots. So that can be a little tricky, but having a buddy or maybe someone that you know that can help you, that's already there, that can help. And sometimes the universities also do have some resources to help guide you to find some of that off-campus housing. But
and there definitely is, and I definitely agree with you. Housing can be a tricky process, and again, most, as an example, I've worked with a lot of students in their housing. I mentioned the February 5th deadline earlier with housing. At least with us, that's kind of the deadline that we actually the open date for the application for housing. Housing, at the Oregon State University works this way. They give you 3 options of the different buildings that you want to choose from. So you can go ahead and look, take virtual tours of the housing and the different buildings that we have available for you. You choose your top 3. And then if you get accepted, you get accepted into into that specific dorm room based off of how many rooms, if you want to share it with somebody. So there's a lot of things, almost kind of like choosing an apartment and a place to live, right? Because that's basically what you're doing. Then let's say you don't know anybody down there. How do I pick somebody to live with? We actually have a matching system that opens up in May, and I kind of refer it to students kind of as a dating app. You basically put in your likes, dislikes, and all these things, and then you match up with 10 to like 50 people, and you start chatting with everybody. And if you get along and you say, hey, let's be roommates, then you send that information off to our housing department and you get selected as roommates. And so there's a lot of good options, and we have some off-campus housing options available on our websites, and most universities do too. So housing shouldn't be an issue. It is a little bit of work, a little bit of research for you to see where you want to live and the options available, like close to like the bus station, close to the MAX station, or close to whatever it may be. Those are things that you're going to want to research on your own to make sure that you're living in the most appropriate place that'll fit you.
And I could make a pitch too for living on campus for at least a year, even as a transfer student, just because it's been proven that students that live on campus are more engaged in a lot of the other kinds of student life on campus, and being engaged leads to greater academic success. So if you aren't absolutely set on living off campus, and maybe moving to this new place with this new university, it's all new to you, I would recommend living on campus for a time, just so that you can really settle in and really find your niche at the university, and connect in and really feel comfortable, like that's your town now, then maybe take a look at off campus.
So my next question is, are the classes going to be harder when I transfer? And if so, or if I need any kind of support, is that going to be available?
Well, it probably varies, but I think a lot of students may find that university feels, it's getting harder and harder. And that's really in large part because you're moving more and more into your major, getting more and more in depth into more complex material. And there is lots of support for you. And the best students, most successful students, are not the ones that don't take advantage of tutoring. They are the ones that do take advantage of tutoring. Tutoring is there for you, and all colleges and universities have help centers, tutoring centers, help available for math, writing, for all of the subject areas that you might have specific to your major. Your advisors can help you, and as you move into your major, you will have an advisor and supports within your major. There's study groups, people that are getting together to work hard on those courses where they're needing some additional help. And the sooner the better. If you find that you're struggling with writing or struggling with some of the math concepts or chemistry, sooner the better to jump in and get tutoring and support. Don't struggle alone. They're all there for you. And on top of that, it's part of your tuition and your fees that you're paying for. Take advantage of all of the things, the help, the support, the fun stuff, the rec center, and all of those things that help you de-stress and help you feel good. You'll be able to learn more when you're taking good care of yourself, and all of it is there for you. Part of what your experience at the university is all about is, really accessing all the great help that's available for you.
You know, I always tell students that the first 2 years in college are probably the most difficult, because you're doing groundwork. You're doing the stuff that everybody else has to do. You're just laying down that foundation. And when you get into your third and fourth, you're doing what you really want to do, whether that's going into biology, going into engineering. That's where the fun begins, because you're applying everything to your specific major. So get through those first 2 years, build that foundation, and then you can start really doing the stuff that you want to enjoy. So I always tell students, first 2 years are the hardest. After that, you're good to go and you'll be fine. And remember, on average, transfer students tend to do a lot better than those who start the university from freshman year.
So I was curious about, like, if I'm wanting to be involved and participate in like maybe a study abroad program, or maybe even do some sports when I transfer, is that an option?
Oh yeah, definitely. And trust me, the study abroad options get even better at the university. So we worked with a lot of students on this. So most colleges have really cool study abroad options for you. So I definitely check in with your advisor asking about that, and they'll help you plan your courses along that, so you're not missing a beat. So it's not going to be a vacation, you're going to be studying, but it's really cool. You're going to be studying. You could be studying in Switzerland. You can be studying in Germany, and all classes are going to be in English, so you feel comfortable with that. But it's definitely an option for students. And there's a lot of intramural sports. There's a lot of sports. If you want to be on like the collegiate teams, I've actually worked with students who have actually made teams at the collegiate level. So that's always an option for you.